What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here. It's Dean 7904 if you want to get all technical on me. It is 6 o'clock on the East Coast. I'm wearing this goofy hat. I need a haircut. 3 o'clock on the West Coast, 5 o'clock Tennessee time. Of course, that means it's time for the flagship show. It's called Grinderslive. It's sponsored by, well, we'll talk about that sponsor soon enough. Joining me today, it's Chris Kirkwood. You all know him better as Kirk Dees. Kirk Dees, you took down by the way, it's funny, we were having a brief conversation pre-show, and you were saying you were tilted about something. I was tilted about something. I saw you had a 20K takedown on Yahoo Football this weekend. And I was like, hey, I made that exact lineup. And then I made a 2v2 off it because I was like, Marvin Jones, for the birds. And yeah, congratulations. This is my very bitter congratulations to you.
Yeah, thank you. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate that.
That was heartfelt, wasn't it?
Yeah, I got crushed on DK on If It Makes You Feel Any Better on Sunday. So,
sorry.
Yahoo made up for it, but whatever.
Was it a net positive weekend at least? Or,
yes.
Okay,
yes. I had a big day on Yahoo.
Good. That's good to hear. Yeah, Jerry Jeudy, never a doubt. Jerry Jeudy. I took a stand on him, and I had him in a lot of catch games, and thancefully he pulled it out for us. That 90-yard touchdown catch. All right.
Hey, quick question: what was the payout on Dean with a winter hat on?
Well, it's because my hair is ridiculous. It's so bad. I got.
What were the odds? What were the odds for
there was an inside source that knew something, so it was kind of hammered down, and they took it off the board. And they said, "Wait a second." Okay. So Devin might have told somebody, and he told his friends, and then Vegas is going to go broke apparently. But yeah, that's how it's going down. As far as body parts, right? Who's in and who's out? Well, let's say hello to YouTube. What up, YouTube? Feel free to like and subscribe, turn on notifications. We do appreciate all that. I see Will in there, Chief Justice. Do want to give a shout out to the Sports Card Show. It's going down tonight, Tuesday at 7:30. That's the regular time slot. Sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm not. Tonight I'll not be there, but Will's going to be there, Tambo's going to be there, and I believe Jeff El Jefe is going to be there next week. This is Jeff from Sports Card Investor. If you guys are into sports cards, go ahead and check that out. Is that something you've delved into? Do you care for the sports card industry, or is that you probably?
So I started my gambling addiction from sports cards. I got my first book. I used to be a baseball card dealer back. I used to do the shows. I had a tax license and all that stuff. And got my first bookie when I was in 8th grade. Some scumbag solicited me, and that's what started the whole gambling. A lot of ups and downs.
He got you hooked on like 89 per deck or something?
I mean, 8th grade, and then I was down. He like came by the house to pick up money. Like, who comes and picks up like from an 8th grader?
He shook you down?
With their parents. Like, he came and knocked down the door. It was unbelievable.
His parents was like a goon or kind of like a bodyguard to make sure
he was another card dealer, so he played it off like, oh, hey, but he was like this Italian guy. It was ridiculous.
I need to hear more about this story off air.
Looking back.
This is Daily Fantasy Sports. All we care about is tonight and tonight only as far as the 5-game basketball slate. In about 15 minutes or so, we're going to bring in SBK. SBK, of course, is on our projections team, does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. He's been joining the show, telling us what's going on as far as the conversation they're having, lineup HQ specific, figuring out the minutes as far as they're going to be delegated. And of course, later on in the show, we bring in Devin, our fabulous multitasking producer, which for real, even more multitasking. He jumps on the show. He asks us questions. Here, chat. If you guys are asking questions regarding this 5-game slate, please. Devin's the goalkeeper. He says that they're good or bad, good egg, bad egg. It's all his call. But here, this helps. This will help you get on the show. Say if it's a tournament play, GPP, or if it's a cash game play, and tell us what site you're playing on. FanDuel, Yahoo, DraftKings. That makes things so much easier. We much appreciate that. And again, there will be some questions Devin will be compiling. He'll even jump in there and let you guys know, hey, I got your question. Stick around. We'll ask it in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, give or take. He comes on about 15 minutes later on in the show. No, 15 minutes left of the show. All right. As far as the big thing is with the slate, LeBron James is still questionable. He's been questionable all season long. KCP's questionable as well. LMA, LaMarcus Aldridge, also questionable. Kawhi, this is the tricky one. We were talking about it pre-show. We haven't seen Kawhi play a back-to-back in a while. This is the front end of a back-to-back. And tomorrow they play national TV against Golden State. There are some national TV rules as far as resting guys without injuries. Maybe they want to avoid that. Maybe he doesn't play. Just my speculation. I don't know if he's going to play. I don't know if he's not going to play. And it's a later game too, which makes things a little bit tricky as well. We talked about this, and I think you thought that he's going to play. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, they didn't mention it on the, usually I thought they would like hide it with something like, say he's questionable, especially when they have like an excuse already there with his lip. And there was just no mention of it. So I was just thinking he's good to go. And, he's facing his old former team, the Spurs. So I just, my lean was that he plays. I can see the reasoning. Like you said, it's against Golden State. It's a national TV game tomorrow that typically doesn't play many back-to-backs, but I don't know. I was counting them in.
It is a little tricky, but we always talk about late swapping. You do have an extra game, Chicago, Portland, that happens after that San Antonio Clipper game. And that's obviously amongst the 5 games, one of the more popular games to go to as far as, rostering fantasy players. So maybe set yourself up for a 2v2 or a 3v3 or something like that. If Kawhi doesn't play, all of a sudden a guy like Paul George jumps up, and even like Lou Williams is pretty cheap. I know he hasn't been getting the run he's normally been getting, but he becomes a little bit more interesting as well. And, he's like 4K on FanDuel. I'm not happy about it, but he's in my shell lineup currently just because of salary cap reasons. Josh Okogie's out with his hammy. Let's see if KCP doesn't go, like Kuzma or THT can benefit to some degree. Derek White, man, this guy came back with his toe, played, and then hurt. I think it's a different toe injury. He hurt another toe. It's just awful. I don't mean to laugh at this guy's misfortune, but Derek White is out once again with a toe. So yeah, he played one game, and that's pretty much it. So let's talk about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's not playing this evening for COVID protocol reasons, and that's the first game on the slate, the only game at 7:30. If you guys aren't aware, this is why we're on a little bit later than normal, because of the slate. It starts at 7:30, not 7 as per normal. So how much Brooklyn is too much Brooklyn? How chalky does Kyrie have to be for you to consider not playing him in tournaments? We know the difference with Kyrie on the court without Durant, with Durant, or just like when it's just Kyrie's show. Obviously, they've only played like 15 or 16 minutes. If you fire up the old court IQ on Rotogrinders, I think it's 15 or 16 minutes where they have been, one on, one off, which is weird. I figure they would stagger them more. That just hasn't happened for whatever reason. But I mean, we know that he's going to get a bump without Durant taking all those shots. How much do we love Kyrie tonight?
We have to love him, right? Like, because he's a usage monster anyway. You take Durant away, and he, the team should be on his back. However, they still have another stud with Karis LeVert, and they will share some time, playing together. We don't have a starting lineup. I'm expecting LeVert to come off the bench.
Same.
But if he were to start, that might be like a downtick to Kyrie for the potential usage that LeVert would take on. But, he's playing with a bunch of pretty much low usage guys since Durant's not there. So he should be all systems go. The problem is the matchup, right? It's the Jazz. Now
it's fine.
It's fine. It's what it is. It's fine. But we have Dame playing the Bulls, which is terrible, which is better than fine. And then if you think about the Bulls, right, like you just like break it down, the Bulls were terrible from the defensive end, but they were really good at stopping opposing guards because they had Chris Dunn, who was just a tenacious defender.
Yeah.
So they lose him, and Satoransky was their next best defender of the guard, and now he's been out too. So it's just really White and Levine, and those guys are not good defenders by any stretch. So this is as good of a matchup for Dame and CJ as you're going to get.
Well, that's the point, by the way. It's interesting to note, and it's a small sample size, but we've always seen like Dame was 1 and CJ was 1A, but that's not been the case this year. It's inverted. And again, this certainly may change. We're through like 6, 7, 8 games, depending on the team. But McCollum's been the better player than Lillard. And, there's kind of a sticker shock on him, but he's just been awesome. He's also been playing, depending on, they've been staggering those guys, and he's been playing 5 or 6 minutes or so without Dame on the court with just a bunch of dudes don't shoot outside of like Carmelo or maybe Cantor sometimes as well. And you mentioned Chicago, and again, small sample size theater. As far as pace this year, Chicago is second fastest team in all of basketball. Not just that, they're playing the let's see, defensive rating. I believe they are the
25th.
Yeah, sixth worst. Yeah, the sixth worst. So they're poor defensively, and they play faster than anybody else. And there was one other thing that I wanted to note when I was looking at this stuff.
It's the exacta right there. The fast and bad defense.
The three worst teams this year so far, as far as the exacta box, there you go. The three worst teams as far as playing defense this year: Minnesota, Denver, and Portland. All three playing tonight in a 5-gamer. And we saw how terrible, remember the bubble games. Denver was horrific. That defense was so bad. Now, they're probably a little bit better with Porter off the court because he's a terrible defender. And that was the reason why, one of the reasons why Malone would just give him the hook, because he just couldn't take his defense. But it's not good. And it's not good by any means in Minnesota. Oh boy. And we're talking, and that's a repeat game, right? Minnesota, they're running it back from a couple days ago. Minnesota and Denver played, and that's just the nature of the season. We're seeing a lot of back-to-backs just because, they're trying to limit travel to some extent. But so TLC is probably going to, I assume he's going to draw the start there in Brooklyn. And we mentioned, Tareem Prince, I imagine, is going to start for Brooklyn. I wouldn't get excited about that. He probably only plays about 20 minutes. And LeVert basically runs the show off the bench, and he may, like, once he come in, just knock him out. Like, that certainly is a plausible scenario, and just, play the last 15, 16 minutes, of the first half and the second half, get like 30, 32 minutes or so. And that can definitely, get enough for you. As far as anybody else on Brooklyn, do you like the peripheral pieces? I think TLC is playable on DK at 3-7, just because, once again, the cheapies, the list of cheapies. Let's do this. How about I'm going to fire up the lineup HQ, and as far as our point per dollar best plays, it's ugly. You ready for it? I'm not sure if you're looking or not.
Man, no, I'm not looking, but I know one's going to pop up that just grosses me out. If you're going to start with Ed Davis,
that's who I'm starting with, because we assume he's going to start again. Last time the Minnesota changed up their starting lineup, Ed Davis drew the start. Naz Reid went to the bench. Ricky Rubio went to the bench as well, and I believe they started Hernan Gomez, right, for the old revenge game. I'm fairly certain and Okogi's not playing too, which in theory that solidifies the minutes for guys like Hernan Gomez and Culver. And Ed Davis is a decent fantasy point per minute player, and he's a vet. He's not going to play a ton of minutes, but if he plays 23, 24, that should be quote unquote good enough. And what do we have projected for as far as fantasy points? It's probably around 20-ish. Yeah, 21, which in theory is good enough. TLC is next. This is DK specific for what it's worth. Hey, if you guys want to use this tool at your own leisure, Devin's going to go ahead and drop that link for you guys. You get $10 off your first month. Not just $10 off for the a la carte. Like, you can just get NBA if you want NBA. All the sports you can get as well, as far as a combo platter. Everything with the exception of NASCAR, and golf just started too. So you get golf for free. There you go. Have at it. And you can, it's a lineup builder, all that good stuff. All right. So TLC, Timothy Luwawu Cabarro is second of Zubac, Jeff Green. There's two Greens in theory that are in play tonight. Jeff Green getting some more run potentially for Brooklyn. We know he plays some so when they go small, he can play a 5 as well. Juancho Hernan Gomez. It's these are not fun names. PJ Dozier is interesting. If you're saying, hey, there's a bunch of blowouts this year, PJ Dozier is a guy that can shine in a blowout, and he can also kind of sort of get there. There's routes where he gets there in a game that's fairly close as well too. But do any of these names excite you? I'm looking at chat. Chat, any names excite you that I threw out there? Probably.
No. So we're really stretching here. So my thoughts on Ed Davis are, number one, we're just, because this guy started last game, we're just assuming that he's going to get the role and get the same minutes again. I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe Naz Reid got punished a little bit, but Naz Reid was certainly the guy that everybody wanted before, just that one game last game. And Ed Davis just doesn't produce much, right? And so I think that's a really fragile situation. So I would love to. I mean, he's going to be chalk tonight. Like, that just blows my mind. And so if that's the case, like, I would try to find anybody. Like, I'm talking about guys like Daniel Gafford, like, who's going to be up playing against Cantor, right? Like, that's like sneaky, at least to me. Like, no one's going to play Gafford for the exact same price, and he's going to have a matchup against, as opposed to playing Jokic, he's going to be matched up playing similar minutes against, maybe a little bit less minutes, but similar minutes against Enes Kanter. So that's the kind of way I'm thinking it. But, like, man, there's one play that I love, but it's a little bit more expensive. But, like, talk about value, Lou Williams, right? Like, yes,
why is tonight the night that Lou does this thing?
It might not be, right? because it's in him. We know it's in him, right? Like he's going to come out and he's going to score. And this is a guy who has 40, 50 point upside he does. Maybe not recently, but that he does. But he did put up 31 against Minnesota, right? Like, and then if you were already convinced that Kawhi is going to sit, then wouldn't that make a lot of sense to be able to have Lou Williams? Like, I'm fine with playing Lou with Kawhi and Paul George, but you get that boost if he does potentially sit.
I just see a question in chat. Just happens to be, and I just happen to notice since we're talking about it. Do you have to play Ed Davis in cash on DK or still pivot? I don't think you have to play Ed Davis in cash. I think you can. I don't think you have to.
Just say it. Just say it out loud to yourself. The answer is so clear, right?
And the Naz Reid situation also, like, it might be a good thing that Naz Reid's on the bench. Less chance of him getting in foul trouble right away. Like, he can't get in foul trouble. He's on the bench, and that's one of his flaws for sure. It probably increases the chances of this game blows out, and they're 10-point dogs here of him mopping up if necessary. Now, we've seen it before where it blows out and he comes back, but we've seen it before where he doesn't come back. So again, and I assume they're going to stick with the same lineup there in Minnesota with Russell, Beasley, Culver, Hernangomez. Revenge game. Beasley revenged out there too, by the way. It's a back-to-back revenge game for both those guys. And then, Rubio and Naz Reid and Ed Davis just does not seem like the kind of guy, especially if he starts, that's going to sort of mop things up. I feel like I'm hearing a noise in my ear. Is that SBK getting connected with us? Is that SBK, or am I just? Oh, there you go, dude. SBK, you joined at the right time from our projections team here at Lineup HQ. This is probably a fun conversation you've had all day as well too. Do you want to talk about Ed Davis?
Say that again. Do I know anything about Ed Davis?
Do you want to talk about him?
Not the first question I thought I was going to get on here, but I mean, I think he's definitely a little bit interesting. Not going to give you much offensively. He's going to rebound well. I'm not sure if they're going to start him again though. I think they had done, well, I guess it's the same matchup. So I guess they could just kind of do the same thing. Mm-hmm. I would expect that if they do that, they probably still end up splitting minutes pretty much between Davis and Naz Reid. But yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of viability, especially at 3.4 at DraftKings. I mean, he plays 22, 24 minutes at that salary. He's definitely got a chance of return value.
Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of parsing through like the value plays as far as the slate.
Just listen to that sentence. So has a chance at returning value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so the alternative would be like JaMychal Green or Jeff Green or Hernangomez, who I feel a little better about than all those guys. I don't know if you
want JaMychal.
No JaMychal.
No JaMychal. We were actually talking about him a little bit earlier. He's before that game turned into a blowout, the Nuggets last one, he was really only seeing minutes behind Jokic at center. I think he did play a little bit of power forward when there was a blowout. So I would expect his minutes to probably drop a little bit from where they were in the last. Oh, actually a decent deal. We have him at 17 minutes. I believe he was 27 in that last game. So I wouldn't expect that again. So I wanted to at least note that.
What else is yourself and Tuttle and Jamino and Allen and the whole projection team? What else have you guys been debating and kind of going back and forth on?
One weird thing, which I don't really think is going to come to fruition tonight, but we've been kind of debating on, is there a chance that Kawhi sits on the front end of a back-to-back tonight? We're kind of, the consensus is it's unlikely, but I still think there's at least a chance that happens, which would obviously change a lot on a pretty short slate, would make Paul George pretty enticing play. And then, on the other side, we have LaMarcus Aldridge, who's questionable. Would make Keldon Johnson a bit more appealing, DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan, even Rudy Gay, Jakob Poeltl, who has kind of disappointed a bit in his starts for Aldridge. But he'd still have some viability there.
Let's get you out of here on this one, I suppose. Brooklyn, no Durant. What are you expecting? Are you expecting Prince to start with LeVert coming off the bench? And if that's the case, is Prince playable, or is assuming it's like a nominal start, he plays like 18 to 20 minutes?
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I think that was pretty much the case the last time that Durant had sat. We also didn't have Kyrie in that one either, but I think Prince played like 19 minutes or something like that. It wasn't much, and it wasn't nearly enough to become like a viable DFS play. I'm not really too enticed by either him or Jeff Green. I could see them using a little bit more TLC and maybe playing a little bit smaller. But I mean, Kyrie Irving is an unbelievable play. Looking at his numbers, was looking at this last night. He's 1.48 fantasy points per minute, over the last 2 seasons with Durant off the floor. Caris LeVert also pretty damn good in that split, although his fantasy point per minute rate did drop a lot in that, the last 2 seasons with Durant out. Obviously not much data there, but with Kyrie on the floor, he dropped, I think, to 0.83 fantasy points per minute. So not a level that I feel terribly confident in, but I think this is a little bit of a different situation. I think we have projected at about 1.1 fantasy points per minute, which I'm pretty comfortable with there. So I think Kyrie and LeVert are kind of your two plays there.
I do think it's interesting from a Twitter perspective if you want to get goofy and just like maybe buy yourself an extra half hour at a time, or even an extra hour and a half if you don't play anybody in the Lakers-Memphis game, and maybe you get some clarity as far as LeBron, and maybe LeBron is out, but we haven't seen that yet. He's just questionable every single game. I think he's played every game this year where he's been questionable, and just kind of backload stuff. If Kawhi sits, that can be a really interesting conversation. You can just make it a 2-game slate and just play, the Spurs, Clippers, Chicago, Portland game, or even get to some action as far as Minnesota, Denver. But all right, we're going to get you out of here. Is there anything else you're monitoring, or just sort of you're kind of waiting, you keep refreshing Twitter and trying to see if any sort of news breaks?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. I believe KCP also questionable. That's really the only thing we hadn't really touched on injury. There's not really too much on the injury front tonight. LeBron James I think he's going to be questionable every game this season if this trend continues. So I would still probably imagine he plays, but super frustrating that we're kind of having to deal with that on a nightly basis with them.
Yeah. All right, dude. Much appreciate your time. Get back to the old lineup HQ, and if anything breaks, I'm sure yourself and the team's going to be all over it. That was SBK from the RG Projection team. Bringing back Kirk Dees. We're going to be bringing in Devin, our fabulous multitasking producer, in about 15 minutes. He's going to come on with a bunch of questions from chat. What up, chat? YouTube, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We do appreciate all that. If you want your question answered or asked, or both, I guess it would be rude if we asked the question and just didn't answer it. Devin will ask it. Myself and Kirk Dees, one of us will answer it. Tell us what site you're playing on, and tell us if it's for tournament or for cash. So, Kirk Dees, what about it as far as, are you making a lineup? You're like more of like a one lineup guy, aren't you? I feel like that's what you do.
It depends on how I'm feeling that day. But tonight, yes, tonight's a one lineup guy.
Yeah. So, and and I'm not telling people they shouldn't lock in Kyrie, but it's certainly possible Kyrie puts up like 49 fantasy points, which is fine, but it's not going to like quote unquote break the slate, right? And then there's lower that's later. There's Jokic, you really know what salary cap, that kind of thing. And what if LeBron doesn't play? I think he's going to play. I assume he's going to play. And what if Kawhi doesn't play? All of a sudden, Paul George opens up the world to you. And you already talked about that Chicago Portland game. Are you thinking about? Did you like the idea of a game stack? Is that something you like to do, or the situation has to present itself? And if that is how your general strategy is, does the situation present itself tonight?
Oh, certainly. So I love game stacking on smaller slates, like 5, 6, even 7 games. And it certainly seems like game stacking is the way right now with the way the NBA is going. Like, it's like every game just seems like a blowout. I have no idea if that's what the actual historical numbers are, but it seems like every game's a blowout. And it's been crushing a lot of fantasy value for a lot of players. But so if you pick that right game, and if you just happen to even get lucky and get to overtime, I think that's huge too. But there's one game that just sticks out like a sore thumb, which is the Bulls Blazers to me.
Yeah. Well, how do you make that game stack? In theory, if you're going to kind of sort of play it out, how would you build it? What is the route you go? Because there are some expensive pieces. Lillard and McCollum aren't cheap, obviously. Levine's got a pretty reasonable price, and the Bulls, you could step down the White, you could throw your darts at like Thad Young or Wendell Carter. You catch him on the right night when he's staying out of foul trouble. Certainly has some upside. Nurkic, in theory, has some upside, but he just hasn't been getting the minutes, hasn't been getting the run necessarily. But like it's sort of baked in the price. I think there's a chance he can 7x that or 8x that for sure. And then Cantor, we talked about on pre-show. I feel much better about Cantor on Yahoo than anywhere else, where he's just $2 above the floor. He's $12. Everywhere else, the price is kind of sort of adjusted, and I don't really want it. And also, the other part of it is, as far as Yahoo, we talked about, it's like Cantor's not a guy you want when he's chalky, right? He doesn't feel comfortable. He's a guy you want when other people aren't playing him, and he may or may not. It looks like he's going to be fairly chalky just because the price kind of puts you on it. But build it out. Build out like that game stack as far as Chicago and Portland. How would you do it?
I mean, you don't have to go crazy. I mean, there's a few ways you can do it. I mean, you can load up with whatever you think are the most valuable or the value pieces, which would be like, not the higher price guys, like maybe like let me see here.
your favorite dollar for dollar play from that game?
Yeah,
It's
so I'm just trying to say who that would be. But I'm saying, so like you can get away with like, you could get away with like fading Levine and fading Dame and using guys like Kobe White, using guys like who else would I put? Maybe CJ, but CJ is up there too. But the preferred way would be to just put Dame and Levine, and then maybe throw in like a Thad Young, like take like some of the value from that game that you can find, and you don't have to fully load it up, but I would certainly want the highest upside pieces. So I would start it with Dame and Levine.
So for what it's worth, this is, you don't really see us very often, but I just kind of isolated that game in lineup HQ and did the point per dollar. And normally the point per dollar guys, the ones that are raw points matter so much, but knowing the point per dollar guys, the best ones are the cheap ones, right? But the best point per dollar play, according to lineup HQ and DK specific, is Zach LaVine, and second best is CJ McCollum. That's interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, and CJ's been balling, man. So, but I just have a feeling that it's going to be a Dame game tonight. I think he's finally going to be ripe to go off, because he wants to. It's the beginning of the season. He's hearing all of it. Like, he's underwhelmed. But he had one big game against Golden State, another against Houston. I think we're going to get a monster game soon. I'm talking about like a 60+ game, and I think tonight is certainly could be the spot. But I would also try to get Wendell Carter in there, just because of the people don't want to play him right now because of the foul trouble and the lack of minutes from, being in foul trouble and having some poor games. But if things break right, he also, if he can stay on the floor, and if he can match up some with Cantor too, if he can get some extra minutes there, if they pull Nurkic earlier, because they're giving Cantor more minutes, then that would just be a bonus. But 5,700 for a price tag is just, certainly there's a lot of room there to outperform it.
Yeah, and one of the reasons Cantor's a really solid offensive player, and active on the glass. One of the reasons why he doesn't get a ton of a run is because he's so generous on the defensive end. You love matching up against Cantor for sure. He's a horrible defender. And like you talked about, just one more thing is put a bow on it as far as game stacks. Like, I much prefer to game stack on a 5-game slate, on a 4-game slate, as opposed to like a 10 or 11 or 9. It's just there's thinner routes that can beat you if your game stack happens to play out really well. So it's for me, and I think that's kind of sort of you're getting at as well too. If I'm gonna game stack, it's using organic, but like I'll also force it. I'm more likely on a 4 or 5-game slate, 3-game slate. Of course, tonight we're going with a 5-gamer. Saw a note that D'Anthony Melton's expected to be back in the rotation. He was DNP-CD. My understanding, he was available last game, just didn't play. He's going to get some run, probably not a ton. Just sort of throwing it out there. This is all the news we have as far as the body parts. Dante Exum is out for 1 to 2 months, but he's not playing this evening, and doesn't matter for our purposes. I hope he feels better in about 1 or 2 months. All right, so what else is kind of sort of popping for us? If you're playing the Brooklyn side, Kyrie is going to be popular. TLC as a cheapie is going to be popular to some extent. For sure, people are going to play LeVert. Who do you like as a run back as far as Utah? Because I think you could play Gobert. Mitchell's too cheap on DK, and it's just like he's not a terrible shooter all of a sudden. He's just going to correct his shooting, and I think he's got a pretty positive price. And Conley's been great, much better than he has been in recent years. How do you run back as far as that game? You're making a game stack, or at least the Brooklyn side. Who do you run it back with as far as Utah?
I mean, I probably say this every slate, but and he had a decent game, but there's room for in his last one, but there's just room for more. Is Donovan Mitchell at this 7,400 price? Now, granted, he has not been great, but the usage is still there, right? And that's all the underlying statistics are there. He just hasn't been shooting that well, and he's been less aggressive at times. But and Mike Conley's certainly been playing well, but I still think the upside is there for Donovan Mitchell. Oh man, Rudy Gobert is as consistent as it gets, right? Just game log.
He's consistent, but he doesn't have the 70-point ceiling unless he just goes absolutely insane from rebounds and blocks, which can happen. But he's not going to make any threes. He's not going to assist the ball really. But he's good. He's fine. But he's also rarely the guy that's the reason why he won, because Rudy Gobert went absolutely ballistic. No?
Well, it depends what other centers do tonight. So
sure.
But certainly at 7,700, he's in play, and he's in play on. So that was the question we were talking about earlier. You were saying how you were in love with Enes Kanter on Yahoo, and I said he's going to be chalk. And I said the question is do you want to try to really crush Kanter with Gobert at center tonight instead of him? So that's kind of my thought process. I mean, Gobert has upside. He hasn't, he's underperformed a little bit too, but he's been consistent 40s. Had one tough game against the Clippers, but he also had a blowout in just 27 minutes in the last game against the Spurs and almost hit 40. But like, this is a matchup with Brooklyn, and he could just dominate. And they're playing really fast. And if he can get a lot of the offensive putbacks and stuff, like he can just dominate DeAndre Jordan and what's his name, Jared Allen.
Yeah, but DeAndre Jordan is 3.9 on FanDuel. That's really, really cheap. And, they've mostly been splitting the minutes between Allen and Jordan, or maybe playing about 40 to 42 combined. And, Green might get some 5, or Durant might get some 5. Durant not playing tonight probably slightly increases their upside for more minutes. But Gobert is a more traditional big, and DeAndre Jordan's a more traditional big. I really want to play Jokic. You could only play one center on FanDuel, and like it just sort of messes with construction. But I do think he's like, the floor is. It's an uncomfortable play. Nobody wants to play DeAndre Jordan in the year 2020, but he's super, super cheap and just gets you a completely different build. Just thought it was interesting and worth noting. Speaking of FanDuel specific, just the way their kind of positions are, power forward, right, on FanDuel. If you look at the asking price, as far as the players that are listed, you got Anthony Davis, who's 10K. And then the next guy up, as far as salary, power forward, FanDuel specific. Well, Markkanen's not playing. Aldridge probably not playing. We shall see. Bojan Bogdanovic is 5.3K. It's like, so I think Anthony Davis, just by construction reasons, and you happen to have the salary. Like I made a lineup with Davis, and I'm like, I got everything else I mostly want for the most part. How do you feel about Davis on FanDuel? And like, I don't necessarily love him at 10K. I think he's perfectly fine. Of course, he's much better if LeBron doesn't play. Stay tuned on that, but he's still playable. What would you do there? Or you can just spend down. I like Brandon Clark, who's 5.1, or Covington, who's 5K. And this is the scoring system where he at least thrives when he gets those stocks in the right nights. He can get 4, 5, 6 blocks, steals, and kind of get there that way. Power forward's kind of a wasteland outside of Davis on FanDuel.
Yeah, so that's interesting from making lineups, because it's also hard to if you jam them in, you're gonna have trouble, really making your lineup really, really nice with Jokic. Although there's some ability. I mean, you can get it done. You can do anything you want on FanDuel. Let's be honest. You can actually make a lineup with like Dame, Anthony Davis, and Jokic, but then you got to take a bunch of punts. But you could get LeVert in there too. You'd have to use guys like Monty Morris or something, who's been playing a bunch of minutes and done pretty well. So I could see him working out for you there. But I don't think Davis is the priority. For me, I think like you can get away with like guys like Thad Young and just build a stronger overall lineup. I hate to say Paul Millsap, because I don't want to play Paul Millsap.
2 games in a row, Paul Millsap is not like it's like once he gets out of the game in the third quarter in his rotation, he's gone. He doesn't come back. That's happened in back-to-back games. Doesn't mean that's the way it's going to be going forward. I think one of those was a blowout for what it's worth. Denver was also crushing. They went like a 17-0 run or whatever it was. So they didn't want to mess with the unit too much. I think they just brought Murray in, if I'm not mistaken. And also Millsap is old. But like you're right, he's perfectly fine.
Brandon Clark, I'd probably lean towards Clark and Thad Young for going cheaper.
The chat thinks I'm about to rob somebody with this. I'm an honorary wet bandit, I think. Do you remember the Wet Bandits?
Yeah, a little bit.
What do you mean a little bit? You either remember the Wet Bandits or you
I remember them. I remember them.
Joe Pesci, of course, was a Wet Bandit. Yeah.
And the guy from Home Alone.
Yeah, he was a Wet Bandit in Home Alone. That was their name. The robbers. They turned the water on. That was their tell.
Yeah. What's the guy's name? Not the Joe Pesci.
Marv.
Because he was also in that. He kidnapped the basketball.
What was that movie? Boston Celtic. Damon Wayans. Yeah. That was a terrible movie. It was like an Ace Ventura. Like the Dan Marino got stolen. Like people forget that Dan Wayans got stolen as well. What was that basketball movie? The chat will let us know for sure. They'll be all over it. Hey, chat. I don't know if they've already fired a bunch of questions, but Devin's coming on. He's going to let us know about the Wet Bandits in just a few minutes. He's going to fire off a bunch of questions. Get your questions in now as he's still compiling. Unbelievable. And somebody's calling me on Skype. That's totally annoying. All right.
Skype. Who calls people on Skype?
A cold call too. Come on, man. You should know I'm working. I'm talking. Yeah. All right. I'm not going to get derailed here. We're going to keep this on the rails. But yeah, ask some questions the last second. I'm going to bring Devin on in just a second. He's going to tell us about the Wet Bandits, and he's also going to answer some questions for us, or at least ask some questions for us. Tell us what site we're playing on, and tell us if it's tournament or TPP. Devin, get me out of this. I'm flustered. So help me out. First of all, tell me about the Wet Bandits. You know, don't you? You have to know.
I mean, of course I know the Wet Bandits.
Celtic Pride. Good job, chat. There you go. That was the movie that we
Daniel Stern.
You should know that. You're a Celtic fan, aren't you?
I know. I should know that.
Oh, well,
All right. Well,
yeah.
we have somewhere we have to start because Big Show Brandon in chat's going to break out in hives if we don't talk about Mello. You guys were talking about a game.
Yeah,
stack.
the people want to talk about Mello.
Is that Big Show? Is that from the horse racing guy?
Yeah, the horse rats BSB.
Yeah,
he's a big timer.
We played that. He's amazing, and never play him in NHL hockey for money. He's very, very good.
We got the one. Remember the one?
I was trying to play against him.
He's in here. Jared Barton. He's in chat. He's a big card guy. He'll be watching your card show after. He did a box break live today.
There you go. Well, I mean that's going to be Will. It's going to be Will and Jeff from SCI and Kemba. But all right, Devin, fire away. Enough stall.
So Carmelo Anthony, they want us to.
They were talking specifically FanDuel tournament.
How much? Oh, is he? Well, how much is Carmelo Anthony? Let's see. Oh, he's 4-2. Eesh. God. I mean, does he mop up against Chicago? Kind of, sort of, maybe, possibly. I don't know how much mop up he does, but.
Well, he's got interesting minutes. So last game he basically played the entire second quarter. So he came in with 5 minutes left in the first, played that, and then he played the entire second quarter. Now he got in foul trouble, and so he didn't even touch the court in the third quarter, and then he pretty much closed the game and then fouled out, I think. Yeah, I mean, this is a buy. I don't see massive upside, but I think it's a buy low spot. I mean, like he could obviously get it going in this matchup.
I'm running through as far as the small forwards I have on FanDuel. He did not land in the shell lineups that did make. I mean, look, I'm not happy about it, but Derek Jones Jr. I think he got there last time just with stocks. Like that's it. But that was good enough.
No, that was 2 games ago. But
okay, yeah.
I definitely didn't get there last time. He scored like 3 fantasy points or something.
Anthony Edwards, yeah. I mean, Rudy Gay if LMA doesn't play.
There was actually a question for Anthony Edwards for tournaments, so touch on it.
That's you got my answer. It's like, ugh. that's kind of sort of how I feel about it. Kyle Anderson, I think, again, it might be a little pinch, but as far as what Melton plays, I mean, a slight tick on a guy like Anderson, a slight tick on a guy like Jones, but Melton might only play, like 12 minutes tonight. I don't really know how to project him first game back. But it's super thin here. And Will Barton, who's like super volatile, is going to be very chalky, I think. Pretty positive price. Should play about 30 minutes or so. Nice matchup. Joe Harris, he's a guy that can any given night hit 6 or 7 threes. So he's certainly playable to a 4.6K. But I'm not getting the mellow. But, I'm not playing 1,000 lineups either. I'm playing go ahead.
Classic 5-minute answer.
Yeah, well, you're the one that asked the question. Hey, did your mom enjoy the show last night?
She did. Apparently my grandparents were watching too. I was like, oh, thank God it was a tame show. Oh, man. King Moses wants to know, favorite power forward FanDuel tournament?
Oof.
We may have touched on that with the Anthony Davis conversation.
Naz Reid's kind of interesting because if he doesn't start, people might move away from him. And also, he's burned a lot of people, but there is a chance that, he gets unleashed, and he's also a guy that can mop up if he doesn't start again. But I like Wancho at 3.5K as a flat-out punt. As far as my quote-unquote main lineup, you answered this question for me. I was going back and forth on it there, Kirk Dees. Clark, and who was the other one I made it with? Brandon Clark's 5.1K, and Covington's 5K. So which do you prefer amongst those two?
Man, probably Brandon Clark, to be honest with you. They're gonna have to start playing this guy more, but they're playing him next to
Valanciunas.
Now, and the minutes are up there. So he had 32, 29. Now he hasn't performed. The usage hasn't been great, but he has talent inside of him. And so I would lean towards Clark. Covington just looks terrible right now. Now, granted, it's a good matchup for him. It should be a good matchup for steals and blocks, but we just haven't really seen it. We haven't seen much of it, but it's certainly inside him. But I would choose Clark first, but Covington's in play. But the guy I really like is Thad Young, man. Nobody wants to play him. They were just because of 2 bad games. He had a really solid game before that. He impressed the coach, got a lot of good coach speak. He's going to match up. He's going to match up with Melo and for a big portion in this game. And so like that, I always want the guy who's matched up on Melo.
Yeah. The classic. Is it lightning round yet, Devin, or not?
We're getting close to it. I'll tell you that much.
We're closing it on lightning round. I was going to add on, but we'll just move on. Go ahead.
Got to break out the crystal ball for Christopher here. Which of these big spreads actually stays close?
Dude, I don't know, man. Like sometimes your lineups just supposed to tell a story, especially on the smaller slates. And I think it's also partially small sample size, and a lot of these teams, whether it's some new players, shortened off season, no fans, which you can argue like kind of sort of kills energy and things like that. That said, I mean, I don't know how real this is. Maybe it is real. And this is just the NBA this season. That's how it's going to go down. There are some stadiums that have arenas that have some fans sprinkled in, depending on the state, obviously. Kirk Dees, do you have a game? Is Denver going to beat Minnesota by more than 10?
Yes. Denver is going to – D'Angelo Russell's going to play terribly tonight, and the Wolves are going to get blown out. The game, the 2 games following that, I think Pop – I would bet on Pop keeping his team in it, playing a better game. And then, but the Portland Bulls is my game, man. I think that's going to be close. I think it's going to be competitive, and I think it's going to be the juiciest game on the slate.
Now, Kirk, remind me, you just said that D'Angelo Russell is going to do poorly today. Didn't you have some sort of a promotional pick for that?
Yes, I said to go under on for the prize picks.
Hey, thank you, Devin, for reminding. That was a nice nudge. Prize picks. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Thank you, Prize Picks. You get yourself a 100% deposit bonus up to $100 using the promo code Grinders. Devin, multitasking, reminding me things, putting stuff on screen, showing his face on screen, asking questions. How it works, you pick over, you pick under on certain players, and you have under as far as D'Angelo Russell. And I have over on CJ McCollum just because the number is wrong. I just think it's incorrect, especially when you consider the matchup too. You consider the way he's been smashing this year. You consider he's getting, 5 or 6 minutes or so without Lillard in the court. What was the number? 37? It's incorrect. I can't remember what it was, but it was too low, in my opinion. Thank you, Devin.
Not a problem. And you mentioned smash. If we get to your question, smash that like button.
What?
Man, look at me multitask.
I couldn't tee it up any better for Dean. He totally whiffed.
All right, K-Mac wants to know, Cantor, Zubac, or Ibaka, FanDuel tournament?
Ooh.
I think Ibaka's sneaky tonight.
He's the guy that his minutes have been kind of goofy, but like they've also played in some blowouts as well. I mean, none of those are comfortable, right? We should say.
I mean, you poo-pooed Cantor earlier, so.
You want to hear a little BVP?
Yeah, sure.
We all do.
35 against the Spurs last time, 41 the time before that, 36. He's had some good games against them.
So
they don't have a real he performs better against not like smaller bigs. And they don't really have anyone like good and skilled to shut him down. So I think he's a sneaky play tonight.
Nice.
News, by the way, KCP is out.
I was just about to touch on that one.
Oh, there you go. And TNT, if you want to be goofy, is kind of sort of somewhat playable. But, I mean, he should play now about 22 minutes or so, maybe 20-ish. And he's been a good fantasy point guard player. He crushed in the preseason. And why do we have that note? Again, follow-up question, is LeBron playing? Anybody want to ask? How do we get the KCP news, not the LeBron? Go ahead, Devin. I don't want to rant.
All right, lightning round. I'm going to start muting you, Dean. Dovey wants to know, is Jokic a must-play in cash?
Yes.
That's the plan.
All right. Hammer wants to know, could Kyrie and Levert both get there in tournaments?
Yep.
I say yes.
All right. Manuel wants to know, is it crazy to think Gafford can get a 10-point double-double? If so, good idea to plug him into center spot and squeeze a Jokic into the FanDuel into the util for DK tournaments.
Wonder where you heard that one from. But no. Yes, I touted Gafford earlier as a play matching up against Cantor. I think definitely. I think I would play him over at Davis tonight in GPP.
All right, we need you to put on your Yahoo cap, Kurt. Otto wants to know on Yahoo, can you get your thoughts on full fade Kyrie and large field GPPs?
Oh man. Full fade? No. So he's probably going to be like 20 to 30% owned tonight on Yahoo. There are other plays. But there's nobody in that. Yeah, there's Dame, who's at actually the exact same price, just 1 point. Yeah, you can do it tonight if you're going to take a heavy stance on Dame, but I would just be more inclined to go under, keep him like maybe 10 to 15%, just in case.
All right. XA Zabird wants to know, do you guys like Anthony Edwards? We touched on that one, I believe.
I'm not enthused. As a last man in, and if you hold your nose, I suppose.
DK Cash, are 3 Bulls too many?
I have not built my cash lineup for I don't think that's what I'm doing. But okay. Well, who are the 3 Bulls? If you're making 3 Bulls in a cash lineup, they're 10-point dogs, and they're the Bulls.
So Matthew, drop in your 3 Bulls if you could, and we'll touch on that.
I think 3 Brooklyn Nets are more likely to be landing in my cash lineup than 3 Bulls.
I was just saying general concept, but for an actual cash lineup tonight, I don't know what. So who is he playing? Levine,
White,
Thad.
We could circle back to it once we get some names.
Yeah, I mean Otto Porter, you can't play at 6'4". I'm not playing Carter at 5'7" in cash. No, I don't see it.
All right. Doug wants to know if Aldridge sits Kel Johnson, who Kevin Roth here has dubbed him Kelvin Big Body Johnson.
Okay.
6.5K on DK. Good cash play?
I don't think he's a cash game play. I think he's perfectly fine for tournaments, but almost definitely not my cash lineup. Kirkish, you like Johnson in tournaments?
Wow, he's going to be really low owned tonight. Tough matchup for him, high price, but the guy's balling and he's a baller. So yeah, if GPP, go for it.
Ballers ball. Aaron wants to know, any interest in Patty Mills for value?
No, I mean, he might hit 6 or 7 threes, but he can only play for so long. No, I have zero interest, nil.
Talk about somebody who never gets there for me.
There's somebody, the self-proclaimed Patty Mills whisperer in RG chat on Discord. I don't remember who it is, but show yourself.
Whisper
and
anyone
give us
else.
the answer.
They've been really quiet this year, I imagine.
They haven't talked in years.
Somebody wants to touch on the Derek White being out, bumping up Murray's usage.
Yeah, so my thought on that is like the prices haven't adjusted, with White being out, because they're all kind of bumped up with how well they've been playing recently, and now White's out, but their prices are still kind of sort of high, if that makes sense. So they're all fine. There's no discounts. I prefer DeMar DeRozan if I can get there. If I'm playing anybody.
White played 1 game.
Yeah.
So it's just status quo at this point.
Not enough of an impact.
Yeah.
Oh, the 3 Bulls were Carter, Thad, Levine. I'm sure you guys touched on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't play Carter and cash, but I don't mind. I love that for GPP. Throw a Dame in there on GPP, and you're good to go.
Reserve some GPP lineups, Matthew. Quick. Doc wants to know, who's a solid power forward value play for cash?
What site is that?
Let's say DK.
All right. What do you have for me? Power forward for DK. Who's popping for you there, Kirktees?
Oh man. Looks like it's gross. I don't want to say Paul Millsap. He's popping.
I might play Hernan Gomez. If he makes everything work.
I would play Thad. Thad is my guy tonight.
He's also 1K more, but yeah, it's not a good position. It's just not. It's not good. DeRozan is fine at power forward if he makes it. If he just fits that lineup. But I think Hernan Gomez has the best chance amongst the cheapies to have his minutes safe, if that all makes sense.
I think this is 4 times now Dean's gone on Wancho rants. So
I'm playing some Wancho.
At least 10% tonight?
I mean, I probably more likely on DK than on FanDuel, just because FanDuel, the cap's not as tight, but he is 3-5 in FanDuel. You can have some fun with it.
All right. Don't forget to hit that like button if we got your question. Jacob wants to know, Jeff Green or JaMychal Green? Sneaky pick for Yahoo GPP.
We discussed this earlier, right, Kirk Tees? If you're going to play one, it's Jeff.
No, I disagree. So I disagree. Oh. I bit my lip and disagreed with
SBK
when the projections war room came on, because they're working him back in, right? Like he was injured, come back from calf. So like we're yes, his minutes were low as you got in, but they even whether it was a blowout or not, they ramped him up a little bit. But they just don't have any bigs really there, unless you call Hartenstein capable big. But I think that his minutes are going to continue to trend up, and if people are going to be off of him, then at 3,800, I like him.
All right, Donnie wants to know, how about some THT for LA with KCP out at the min in a probable blowout?
Yeah, I threw it out there. I think he can get there in 20, 22 minutes. Of course, it's not a safe play for cash, but for sure in tournaments. I think we got to wrap this up.
I was going to say, that's our last one.
The Nets are starting Kyrie, Brown, Prince, Green, and Allen. So that looks different. You know who's going to handle that? You know who's going to break that down is one Andy Means and Kevin Roth. You guys are premium members, or if you want to be premium members, go ahead and check out that link there in chat. You get $10 off your first month, a la carte just basketball, or all of it. You get all the sports with the exception of NASCAR. They're on crunch time. Devin's going to produce it. I was in line up with the whole multitasking thing. That's starting up in about 10 minutes or so. If you guys are premium members, we got to go because Devin's got to set that up. But Andy's going to break that down for you as far as what's going down there in Brooklyn. That said, that was Kirk Dees. That was Devin. This was basketball. I was Dean. Thanks for watching. Good luck tonight. We're out of here. Holler!